My name is Isabella Hart, and I am 32 years old. And on the morning of my wedding, just hours before I was supposed to walk down the aisle, I overheard the one conversation that shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. I was in the bridal suite, hidden behind the half-closed door, fixing the last curls of my hair, when I heard my older sister, Marianne, whisper sharply, "Honestly, Mom, we all know this wedding is nothing special. Isabella always overdoes things. She acts like she's important, but she's still the same girl who never fit in." My mother didn't defend me. She didn't even hesitate. She just sighed and said, "Well, at least she finally found someone willing to marry her." Let's get through this and keep the day about the family image. About the family image. Not about me, not about love, not about the fact that it was my wedding day. The sound of their voices echoed through my chest like someone had carved open a hidden wound. I froze, my hand gripping the vanity table to steady myself. My own family. People I had spent my entire life trying to impress had reduced my wedding to an inconvenience. I didn't cry, not then. What I felt was something deeper, colder, like someone had flipped a switch inside me. It was a strange moment, quiet, almost peaceful, because in that silence, I realized something. They didn't know me. Not really. They had no idea who I had become or what I had built in secret. And they had absolutely no idea that after the ceremony, I planned to take everyone to my new home, a $5.5 million luxury estate I had purchased on my own. A home I had never told a single family member about. A home that would change everything. Before I tell you what happened when their jaws hit the floor, let me take you back, because none of this started on my wedding day. This betrayal had been building my whole life. If you're new here, stick with me, because this story is, well, you'll see. And don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories that hit deep. Growing up, I spent most of my childhood trying to earn warmth from people who were born without it. My family wasn't poor, we weren't rich either, but everything about my upbringing revolved around favoritism, and the favorite child, the golden one, was always Marianne. My sister was born with that perfect daughter glow. Blonde hair, green eyes, a soft smile, perfect grades, the cheer captain, the one teachers loved, the one relatives praised, the one my mother bragged about at every holiday dinner. Me? I was the other one, the quiet child, the girl with dark hair, round glasses, and a voice too soft for a house full of loud personalities. I wasn't terrible at anything, I just wasn't extraordinary. And in my family, not extraordinary meant invisible. Our mother worshipped Marianne. Our father doted on her. And even our grandparents treated her like royalty. I was the child who was always told, "Be grateful," even when I received hand-me-downs or second best. I learned early that Marianne got the big slice of cake while I got the crumbs. That's just how it was. And for a long time, I accepted it. I tried to be useful instead. I was the peacemaker, the fixer, the one who stayed quiet so others could shine. But even then, nothing I did ever seemed enough. In high school, the gap between us widened. While Marianne was setting records and winning awards, I was working part-time at a local coffee shop just to save money for college, because my parents didn't think investing in my education was worth much. And I'll never forget the day I overheard my mother tell a neighbor, "Oh, Marianne will go far. Isabella, she'll probably just find something simple to do. She's not really ambitious." I was 15, and those words burned themselves into the back of my mind like a brand. But here's the thing they never understood. quiet people don't stay small. We grow in silence, and eventually we outgrow everything that tried to limit us. Fast forward to my early 20s. I moved to the city, alone, scared, and with only $1,200 in my bank account, but determined to build a life that wasn't dependent on anyone's validation. I found a small studio apartment the size of a walk-in closet, took 3 jobs, and enrolled in online business courses. I worked mornings at a bakery, evenings at a front desk, and late nights as a freelance writer. My family thought I was struggling, and honestly, at first, I was. But something in me woke up during those years. I learned discipline like religion. I learned resilience like survival. And slowly, I started building something. First a consulting business, then a marketing agency, and eventually my own tech startup. The more successful I became, the less I told my family. Not because I wanted to hide, but because I learned that some people don't want you to succeed, especially people who can't imagine you surpassing them. Back home, Marianne married early. She had the big wedding my parents paid for, the luxury dress, the fancy venue, the perfect photos plastered across Facebook like she had won the life lottery. Everyone celebrated her. Everyone praised her. And when I attended that wedding, sitting at the far corner table during dinner, I promised myself, when my moment comes, I'll never allow myself to be invisible again. My relationship with my family didn't improve over the years. Whenever I visited home for holidays, I was met with the same subtle comments. Isabella, are you still renting? When are you getting married? You're not getting younger. Maybe if you were more like Marianne. I learned to swallow those words like bitter pills. Smile, nod, pretend they didn't hurt. But inside, I was storing every memory, every wound, every dismissal, not for revenge, but for clarity, so that when I built my life, I built it for myself. Then I met Daniel. He wasn't rich or flashy. In fact, he was a school counselor with warm eyes, messy hair, and a laugh that made you feel like everything would eventually be okay. He treated me like I mattered, like I wasn't just a background character. And for once, I didn't feel invisible. Our relationship grew slowly and beautifully, and after 3 years, he proposed. I was overjoyed, not because I had dreamed about marriage, but because someone finally chose me, not for convenience, not for status, but for who I actually was. When I told my family, their reactions were lukewarm at best. Marianne said, finally, I was worried you'd be single forever. My mom said, a school counselor? Well, at least he sounds stable. Not congratulations, not I'm happy for you, just quiet judgment coated with fake smiles. And here's where things get interesting. My business had exploded in the last few years. One of my products, a digital automation tool, went viral. Investors came in, contracts multiplied, opportunities flowed like never before. And just 6 months before my wedding, I purchased my dream home, a $5.5 million modern estate with floor-to-ceiling windows, a private lake view, marble staircases, and a backyard that looked like something out of a luxury magazine. It was everything. But I didn't tell a soul. Not Daniel, not my friends, not even my family. I wanted to reveal it on my own terms, especially to the people who believed I would always be less than. Which brings us back to the morning of my wedding. Hearing my sister and mother diminish me again ignited something fierce inside me. But instead of confronting them right there, I decided on something better. I would let the day play out normally. I would smile, walk down the aisle, say my vows, and let them all believe the same lies they had been telling themselves for years, that I was ordinary, that my life was small, that my wedding was insignificant. And then I would show them the truth. But before any of that happened, something else unfolded, something that hinted that the betrayal ran much deeper than I realized. After overhearing the conversation, I stepped back from the door quietly, my heart pounding, and that was when I heard a third voice, a voice I never expected to hear in that moment. My father. And he said something I will never forget. Well, at least she's not asking us to pay for anything. She knows her place. Her place. The words hit harder than anything else. That was the moment I realized I was not just overlooked, I was underestimated, doubted, dismissed, not by one family member, by all of them. I walked to the mirror slowly, staring at my reflection. My makeup was perfect, but there was a storm behind my eyes. I whispered to myself, they have no idea who you are now. And I meant it. But the day wasn't done hurting me, not by a long shot, because when I stepped out of the bridal suite to head toward the ceremony area, something else happened, something that nearly ruined the entire wedding. My sister grabbed my hand, leaned in close, and said in a hushed tone, dripping with false concern, I hope you're not expecting Mom and Dad to give a speech at the reception. They said you should understand that they'd rather not embarrass themselves in front of Daniel's family. Embarrass themselves? Over me? Over my wedding? But what she said next, that was the real blow. And don't get emotional today, okay? You always make things awkward. Just smile for the photos and don't do anything dramatic. Dramatic. If only she knew. I felt my throat tighten, but I forced a calm smile. Don't worry, I whispered back. I won't make anything awkward. And I meant it, because I was planning something none of them could have prepared for. Which brings me to the moment that sets the entire story in motion. Just as the wedding coordinator signaled for me to walk down the aisle, just as the music started, just as everyone stood and turned to look at me, I saw something, someone, that made my heart drop into my stomach. It wasn't Daniel. It wasn't Marianne. It wasn't even my parents. Standing at the far side of the venue was a woman I hadn't seen in over 10 years. A woman who held a secret about my family that would destroy everything. The funny thing about family is how easily they pretend not to remember the things that break you. They rewrite history as if the scars you carry are just decorative. That night after the rehearsal dinner, when everyone was asleep and the house was silent except for the soft hum of the heater, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, thinking about how all this started. I used to believe my family was normal. Messy, yes. Loud, yes. But normal. It took me almost 30 years to realize that what I thought was normal was actually emotional starvation wrapped in politeness. People always say childhood shapes you, but in my case, it didn't just shape me. It trained me. Trained me to shrink. Trained me to accept crumbs. Trained me to applaud my sister Olivia when I needed applause the most. Growing up in Baltimore, our house was small but always buzzing. Olivia, 2 years younger than me, was the golden child from the minute she took her first breath. My mother used to say, "Some kids are born with a spotlight." She said it jokingly, but she meant it. Whenever Olivia walked into a room, my parents would straighten, smile wider, speak softer, bend their preferences to match hers. When I walked in, nothing changed. I was like a background lamp, useful, dependable, barely noticed unless the bulb burned out. I wasn't a bitter kid. I just adapted. I tried to be perfect enough to earn what Olivia got for free. Straight A's, quiet, helpful, reliable. Our responsible girl, my father would say, patting my head instead of hugging me. "You're the rock of this family." It sounded like praise until I got older and realized rock meant we place weight on you and expect you to hold. Olivia was the jewel, protected, polished, and admired. I was the foundation, functional, invisible, necessary. And foundations don't get thanked. One memory kept replaying in my mind as I tried to fall asleep that night. I was 17. I had been accepted into a competitive summer art program, something I had worked for years. The same week, Olivia decided she wanted to join a gymnastics camp even though she had no real interest in it. When my parents realized they couldn't afford both, they didn't even hesitate. They chose hers. They always chose hers. My mother sat on my bed, smoothing my hair like I was a toddler. "Sweetheart, be mature. You're strong. Olivia is sensitive. She needs experiences like this to build her confidence. You'll understand one day." I nodded, because nodding was easier than screaming. But that night, I cried until my pillow was soaked. And no one noticed. Not then, not later, not ever. So lying in bed now, preparing to marry Daniel, the one person who truly saw me, I told myself the past didn't matter anymore. I wasn't that overlooked girl anymore. I had built a career I was proud of. I found someone who loved me without conditions. I had grown. I had healed. Or at least I thought I had. The next morning, I got up early to help finalize wedding details at the venue. The ceremony would take place in a converted greenhouse on the outskirts of the city, surrounded by tall glass walls dripping with vines and soft morning light. It was elegant, intimate, everything I'd ever wanted. As I walked through the space, checking place cards and flower arrangements, I felt something shift inside me, like anticipation mixed with dread. My family was unpredictable. I wanted to believe the wedding would bring peace, but deep down, I knew that hope was fragile. Around noon, my mother arrived with Olivia in tow. Olivia looked effortlessly stunning, as usual, even in simple jeans and cardigan. My mother looked polished, her makeup set, her hair in soft waves. When they saw me, they smiled, but not the kind that warms your chest. It was the kind that evaluates, judges, measures. "Elena," my mother said, her tone light but her eyes scanning the room, "you look tired. Are you stressed? This is why I told you not to manage everything yourself. Olivia's wedding, when it happens, will probably be simpler." She laughed as if it was a compliment. Olivia chimed in, "Yeah, honestly, I don't know how you deal with all these details. I would be going crazy." She didn't offer help. She never did. They walked around the venue, moving things, whispering to each other, pointing at decorations I'd spent months choosing. I followed behind them, trying to breathe slowly, reminding myself that tomorrow would be about love, not them. But then my mother stopped abruptly at the table layout. She frowned deeply, tapped her finger on the main table, and said, "Why are we not seated here?" I blinked. "Because that's reserved for the wedding party, Mom, and Daniel's parents." "So, we're not considered family enough to sit near you?" she said, her voice rising. "Mom, what? That's not what this is." Olivia leaned in, whispered loud enough for me to hear, "Told you she would do something dramatic." My jaw tightened. Daniel's mother approached then, cheerful as ever, and hugged me. "Everything looks beautiful, Elena. Truly, your vision is stunning." My mother stiffened. Jealousy radiated off her like heat. She had always hated when someone praised me in front of her. Always. Because praise given to me felt like praise stolen from Olivia. "I guess my mother said, giving a tight smile. It's fine. Daniel's mother walked off obliviously. My mother turned to me, eyes icy. You know, Elena, sometimes you make choices that alienate people. Don't be surprised if people feel unwelcome tomorrow. The irony was almost funny. They were the ones who made me feel unwelcome my entire life. But I swallowed my hurt and kept working. By evening, I was exhausted. Daniel picked me up from the venue and immediately noticed my silence. Talk to me, he said gently, squeezing my hand. So I did. I told him everything. My mother's comments, Olivia's passive-aggressive remarks, their complaints. Daniel sighed. I know they're hard on you, but tomorrow we focus on us. Nothing else matters. And hey, he smiled, brushing my hair behind my ear, by this time tomorrow, they'll see a side of you they never expected. I smiled because he meant our surprise. The home reveal after the ceremony, the part of the title no one saw coming. Our home. Our $5.5 million home. A home I had earned my half of through 10 relentless years in real estate investing and project development, something my family had no idea about. They thought Daniel was the wealthy one. They thought I was the lucky girl marrying up. They had no idea. I wasn't marrying into wealth. I was bringing it with me. We decided to reveal it at the wedding reception, not to brag, but to reclaim the narrative. For once, people would see me, not the shadow I had been forced to be. I went to bed that night feeling hopeful. Nervous, yes, but hopeful. Maybe my family couldn't sabotage this moment. Maybe tomorrow would finally be mine. Morning came too quickly. I woke early, showered, got my hair curled, and slipped into my silk robe as the makeup artist worked her magic. My bridesmaids buzzed around the suite, sipping mimosas, laughing, taking pictures. I tried to stay present, but every time my phone buzzed, my stomach clenched. At one point, my maid of honor, Grace, glanced at me and asked quietly, "Hey, are you okay? You seem distracted." I told her I was just anxious. She didn't push, but she kept an eye on me like a protective older sister should, something my actual sister never did. Around noon, my mother and Olivia entered the bridal suite. They didn't knock. They just walked in as if the room belonged to them. Olivia squealed dramatically the moment she saw me in my robe. "Oh my God, Elena, you look so surprisingly good." Surprisingly, she always found a way to dress insults as compliments. My mother stood behind her, eyes sharp. "The makeup is nice," she said slowly. "A little heavy, but I guess that's what brides do now. Hopefully it doesn't make you look older." Grace's eyes narrowed at them. She had never liked my family. She once told me, "It's not that they treat you badly, it's that they treat you conditionally." And she was right. I continued getting ready, trying to tune them out. But then Olivia grabbed my phone from the vanity. "Who keeps texting you?" she asked loudly. "Is it Daniel? Are you guys already having last-minute issues?" She laughed as if the idea was hilarious. "Olivia," I said sharply, "give me my phone." She held it just out of reach. "Relax, I'm kidding. God, why are you always so serious?" My mother stepped between us. "Olivia, stop provoking her. Today is her wedding. Let's just keep things peaceful." But the way she said it, like I was the unstable one, made my blood heat. Grace intervened. "Hand her the phone. Now." Olivia rolled her eyes but obeyed. She placed the phone in my hand, then muttered under her breath, "Always so dramatic." It wasn't until half an hour later that I realized something was wrong. My notifications were off. Conversations weren't where they should be. A message from Daniel was missing entirely. Another thread was open, one I didn't remember opening. And then it hit me. Olivia had been scrolling. Not just reading, snooping. I felt my pulse spike. What had she seen? What had she done? Before I could investigate further, the wedding coordinator rushed in. "It's time," she announced. The room erupted in motion. My dress was lifted, zipped, fluffed. The photographer lined us up. My mother pretended to cry softly. Olivia fixed her lipstick. Grace held my hands and whispered, "Breathe. Everything is going to be beautiful." I nodded. But inside, something twisted. Because even before I walked down the aisle, I felt it. Something was coming. Something I wasn't prepared for. And I didn't have to wait long to find out what it was. The moment I stepped out of the bridal suite, bouquet in hand, ready for the happiest moment of my life, I saw my father standing in the hallway, holding his phone. He looked pale, shaken, confused. When he looked up at me, his face tightened. And then he said the words that made my heart stop cold. "Elena, is this true?" He held out his phone. On the screen was a message thread. My message thread. Only edited, manipulated, twisted. It was a conversation that made it look like I was marrying Daniel only for money. A conversation that made me look like a gold digger using him. And worst of all, it was sent from my phone to my father 15 minutes earlier, when Olivia had my phone. My breath caught, my vision blurred. My father whispered, "How could you do this?" I shook my head, unable to speak, because in that moment, all I could think was one thing. Olivia did this. But why now? Why today? Why this level of destruction? My father stepped back from me like I was a stranger. He said, "We will talk after the ceremony." But his tone was clear. He didn't believe me. My own father, my own blood. And that was when I realized something terrifying. Olivia wasn't just jealous. She wasn't just spoiled. She wanted to ruin me. And she was just getting started. I didn't sleep the night after the dinner disaster. My mother's words kept replaying in my head. "You always ruin things with your dramatic behavior, Harper." And Olivia's face, her sharp little smile as if she had pushed a domino just to watch me crumble. I woke up with a knot in my chest, but also a determination I hadn't felt in years. If there were cracks in my family's perfect story, I was going to find them. The next morning, the house was strangely quiet. My parents had gone to run errands for the wedding, and Olivia was at a salon appointment. The silence felt heavy, like the calm before a storm. I made coffee, sat at the dining table, and tried to breathe, but my thoughts kept spiraling. Why does Olivia act like she owns everything? Why does Mom always defend her? Why does Dad avoid eye contact when money is mentioned? Something isn't adding up. My eye drifted toward the basement door. I hadn't been down there in years. That basement used to be my father's private workspace, a storage place for old boxes, documents, and family archives he said not to touch. But I suddenly felt this pull toward it, like my instincts were pointing me somewhere. I stood up slowly, walked to the door, and twisted the knob. The hinges groaned as if warning me not to go any further. I grabbed the flashlight hanging on the wall and descended the stairs. The air down there was cold, stale, and filled with dust. Boxes were stacked everywhere, labeled in Dad's careful handwriting. But one caught my attention immediately. It was shoved behind a shelf, half hidden. The label was written messily, almost panicked. "Do not open." My heart thudded. Which normal person labels something that way? I pulled the box out and placed it on the table. My hands trembled as I opened the lid. Inside were old documents, envelopes, receipts, and photos, and at the very top, a marriage certificate. My parents' names. But the date. The date was a full year later than I had been told my parents got married, and a full 2 years after I was born. I froze. What? My parents always said they got married in 1990, that I was born the next year, but this certificate said 1993. That meant, that meant I had been born before the marriage, a secret they had clearly tried to bury. My stomach clenched. I kept digging, my breathing shaky. Under it were receipts, bank transfers, unexplained withdrawals, checks signed only by my father. They were all connected to someone named A.M. Lewis. I frowned. I had never heard that name in my life. I continued searching until I found photos, grainy ones of my mother holding a baby. But that baby wasn't me. The date scribbled on the back made my heart stop. It was taken 3 months before Olivia was born. Another photo showed my father standing with a woman I didn't recognize, beautiful with curly hair, holding the same baby. He looked happy, happier than I had ever seen him. My entire body went cold. Who was she? Who was the baby? Why did my mother keep a photo of Dad with another woman? I sat back, holding my chest as if trying to keep myself from breaking open. My entire life suddenly felt like a lie. I didn't know how long I sat there staring at the mess in front of me, but suddenly I heard a soft creak. I turned sharply. Olivia stood at the top of the stairs, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. "What are you doing down there?" she asked, her tone sharp. I swallowed hard. What is all this? Her eyes scanned the table, and for a split second, just a split second, I saw panic flash across her face. Then she smirked. "So you finally found the skeletons." My breath caught. "You know about this?" She didn't answer directly. Instead, she walked down the stairs slowly, her heels clicking against the concrete. She picked up one of the photos, looked at it, and chuckled lightly. "You weren't supposed to see this, Harper. Mom and Dad didn't want you to. They were trying to protect you." "Protect me from what?" I whispered. She exhaled, almost dramatically. "From the truth." I clenched my fists. "Which is?" She placed the photo down gently and looked me dead in the eyes. "You're not special, Harper. You were an accident. And Dad didn't even want to marry Mom at first. You were the reason their whole life plan fell apart." The words sliced through me. My voice cracked. "That's not true." Olivia shrugged. "Believe what you want. Dad told me when I was 12. Said I should understand why you always get treated differently." My heart felt like someone was squeezing it. "Differently? Olivia, they treat you like royalty. They worship you. Exactly," she cut in. "Because I'm the child they planned, the child they wanted, the child whose birth didn't trap them." I felt dizzy. "Why are you telling me this?" She smirked. "Because you've been walking around acting like you're equal to me, like you're owed something. I wanted you to understand your place before the wedding, before you would embarrass us again." Before I could respond, she leaned closer, her voice low. "And if I were you, I'd keep my mouth shut about whatever you just found. Mom will deny everything, and Dad barely has the spine to admit it." I felt a sting behind my eyes. "But why? Why do you hate me so much?" For a moment, her expression softened. Then she glanced away and said something that made my blood run cold. "Because Dad still cares about you more than he cares about me. And I hate it." She turned and walked up the stairs without another word. I remained frozen there for a long time, staring at the mess in front of me. The documents, the photos, the lies, spread out like an open wound on the table. Everything made sense now. The tension, the favoritism, the unspoken resentment. But there was still something missing. Something I didn't fully understand. Who was the woman in the photo? Why were there bank transfers to her? Who was the baby? And why did Olivia look scared when she saw the box? I wasn't just dealing with old family secrets. There was something happening now. Something bigger. I gathered the documents, determined to get answers. I put everything back into the box, except the marriage certificate and the photo of my father with the unknown woman. I slipped those into my pocket. Just as I reached the top of the stairs, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. If you want the truth about your family, meet me tonight. Alone. Don't tell Olivia. Don't tell anyone. My fingers tightened around the phone. The sender had attached an address, one I didn't recognize. I felt a chill move through my body. How did they know what I found? Who were they? And why did they want to meet at night? I took a slow breath, fighting the fear crawling up my spine. Everything inside me screamed this was the key to everything. Every lie, every fake smile, every moment that never made sense. But another part of me whispered that I might be walking straight into danger. Still, I had to know. I needed the truth more than I needed comfort, more than I needed safety, more than I needed the illusion of family. I looked down at the address again and felt my stomach drop. Because the street name was the same one printed on the back of the photo, the one with my father and the unknown woman, a place he had told us he hadn't been in over 20 years. My voice shook as I whispered to myself, "What are you hiding, Dad?" I grabbed my jacket and car keys, heart pounding. Tonight, everything was going to change, and I had no idea whether I was heading toward answers or a trap. When I woke up the morning after the confrontation, sunlight poured across the marble floors of my new home, catching on the gold accents and the soft cream walls. I remember lying there in bed, staring up at the ceiling, feeling the strange mix of exhaustion and clarity that only comes after emotional war. My name is Isabella Hart, 32 years old, and for the first time in my entire life, I wasn't waking up with fear or guilt or the heavy weight of trying to earn my family's approval. Instead, I woke up with a quieter feeling, like the first breath after almost drowning. But the night was far from over, because the truth is, healing doesn't happen because you snap your fingers. It happens because something breaks. And the night before, everything broke. After I stormed out of my mother's house, leaving my mother speechless and my sister Olivia with her mouth slightly open in a mixture of pity and embarrassment, I drove through the city without really knowing where I was going. The lights blurred. My phone vibrated nonstop. Texts from my mother demanding explanations, missed calls from my father, 3 voice notes from Olivia, and even a message from my ex-fiancé, Darren, pretending he cared now that he knew I was doing well. It was almost funny how people suddenly rediscover your number when they realize they misjudged your worth. But I shut my phone off. I couldn't carry their voices anymore. When I finally arrived home, my home, the one I bought with hard work, tears, and years of believing I wasn't enough, I walked inside and felt a strange jolt in my chest. It wasn't pride. It wasn't anger. It was something deeper. Something like, this space is mine. My life is mine. I made myself a cup of tea, sat on the large living room sofa, and let myself finally feel all of it. The pain, the betrayal, the humiliation, the childhood memories that still clung to me like damp clothes I could never quite wring out. That's when the doorbell rang. One sharp chime, then another, fast and impatient. I froze, because I already knew who it was. My father doesn't like being ignored. When I opened the door, he stood there, in his crisp shirt, shoulders tight, jaw locked, the way it always was when he pretended something wasn't bothering him. "Isabella," he said, as if my name were an inconvenience he was forced to utter. "We need to talk." He stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, because boundaries never existed in the Hart household. But instead of following him into the living room, I closed the door and leaned against it, arms folded. "Say what you came here to say. I'm not going to be yelled at in my own home." He turned, eyes narrowing a little, as if he couldn't believe I dared speak to him that way. "Your mother is upset. Your sister is crying, and you embarrassed all of us last night." I laughed softly, bitterness pushing out of me before I could stop it. "All I did was tell the truth. But you know what? You're right. The truth is embarrassing when you've spent your whole life hiding it." He stepped closer, tone sharp. "You don't speak to me like that." And for a second, just a second, the old instinct kicked in. The shrinking, the apologizing, the desire to make peace at the cost of my own dignity. But then I looked around at my home, my walls, my floors, my life, and the fear didn't come back. "Dad," I said quietly, "you've never liked who I became because I stopped needing your approval." He flinched. He actually flinched. A small, barely noticeable movement in his eyes, but I saw it. "You think I don't care? You think I haven't supported you?" I took a slow breath. "You supported the version of me you wanted, not the woman I actually am." For the first time in my life, he didn't have a quick reply. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower. "You were always different, Isabella. You didn't follow the path we expected. You didn't stay close. You didn't ask for advice. You didn't let me control you." Silence filled the room. Heavy. Thick. Years of unspoken expectations sitting between us like ghosts. My father looked around, taking in the chandeliers, the open concept kitchen, the long staircase leading to the upper floor. "You bought this place. $5.5 million. "Yes. And you didn't tell us." "Would you have cared? Or would you have found a way to turn even this into something I didn't deserve?" He exhaled hard, an irritated, defensive breath. "Isabella, your mother is hurt." "I'm hurt, Dad. I've been hurt my whole life, but nobody ever cared about that." That's when something unexpected happened. My father's face softened, not dramatically, not enough to say he suddenly understood everything, but enough to make him look less like a man trying to win, more like a man realizing he'd already lost something important. "Your mother loves you," he said quietly. "She just doesn't always know how to show it. She's afraid you'll leave." I swallowed hard at that. "She pushed me away long before I ever walked away." He nodded slowly. And for the first time in my entire life, I didn't feel like the child who disappointed him. I felt like the adult he underestimated. After a long pause, he said, "Your mother wants you to come over for dinner tomorrow. She wants to talk." This time, I laughed. Not cruelly, not sarcastically, but with a genuine disbelief. "Dad, she wants to talk because she's embarrassed that I finally stood up for myself, not because she cares how I felt for 30 years. He didn't deny it. He couldn't deny it. "Just consider it," he said. As he walked out, he paused at the door. "Isabella, I am proud of you, even if I didn't say it often enough." Then he left, and I stood there, stunned, not because of his apology, but because it felt too late. The next day, I didn't go to their dinner. Instead, I spent the day doing something I had denied myself for years. I rested. I made breakfast. I sat in my backyard by the pool, letting the wind brush against my skin. I called my therapist. Yes, the one my mother mocked me for having. I journaled. I walked through every room in my house, touching the things I bought, remembering the work that paid for them. And for the first time, I felt the weight of generational guilt finally sliding off of me. That night, Olivia showed up. My sister, the golden child, the favorite, the one who never understood what it costs me to live in her shadow. She stood at my door with mascara running down her cheeks. "Isabella," she whispered, "let me explain." And because I still loved her, even after everything, I let her in. We sat on the sofa, and she took a shaky breath. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't know Mom said those things. I didn't know she told people your wedding didn't matter because mine was the real one. I didn't know she told Aunt May that you were overcompensating financially. I didn't know she said your husband was probably going to leave you." My jaw tightened. She said what? "A lot," Olivia murmured. "More than I knew. More than I should have ignored." She wiped her face with her sleeve. "I always thought you pulled away because you didn't like us. I didn't realize you were hurting alone." For the first time in years, my chest cracked, now with anger this time, but with grief. "Liv, I never hated you. I hated how invisible I felt next to you." She grabbed my hand, squeezing it tight. "I don't want to be the reason you felt small." "You weren't," I said softly. "It was them, and I was too scared to admit it." We talked for hours, really talked, for the first time in our adult lives, about childhood, about competition, about how our parents shaped us differently. And somewhere in that conversation, we began to rebuild something, not the old relationship, but a new one, healthier and more honest. By the time she left, she hugged me and whispered, "You deserved better. You always did." After she walked out, I closed the door and leaned against it, tears slipping quietly down my cheeks. Not from pain, but from release. It was the first time someone in my family truly saw me. The next morning, I drafted a message in the family group chat. Not cruel, not emotional, just clear and final. "I love this family, but I am no longer available to be the one who absorbs everyone else's expectations. I will see you when there is respect, honesty, and equality, not before." I hit send. And for the first time in my entire life, the world didn't collapse. Instead, something new began. In the weeks that followed, I started setting boundaries, real ones. My parents didn't take it well at first. My mother called me dramatic. My father tried to guilt me about family traditions. But I stayed firm. I kept therapy. I stopped apologizing for things that weren't my fault. I stopped shrinking to make people comfortable. I started living, not performing, not pleasing, living. And slowly, something surprising happened. They changed. Not perfectly, not quickly, but genuinely. My mother apologized, not in the dramatic, emotional way most parents do, but in her quiet, subtle way. My father tried to listen instead of lecture. Olivia visited more often, always checking in. Our family didn't magically heal, but they finally saw me, not as the daughter who never measured up, but as the woman who no longer needed their validation to feel whole. The truth is, I didn't need their approval. I needed me, and I finally came home to myself. Now my life is peaceful. My marriage is strong. My home is a sanctuary, not a symbol. My worth is not up for negotiation. And if I learned anything from this entire journey, it's this. Sometimes you have to break the old version of your life so the real one can finally begin. And if you're listening right now, I want to ask you something from my heart. Have you ever discovered your worth only after someone tried to take it from you? Have you ever been betrayed by the people you loved most? Share your story in the comments. I'm here to listen.